What's going on, everybody? IcedCrab here today, back with a brand new video. Today is the first ever IcedCrab Reacts video, mixing in with all the other irregular content. We will be doing reaction content. Last Thursday, I did a FNAF video. There's actually two versions of that video, an edited and an unedited version. So you can see my full run without any edits, or you can see the highlights, basically the highlight reel. That took about 40 minutes instead of the hour and 10. But regardless, I did my FNAF video, first one in 11 years. And so today, for the React content, I've decided to go with my buddy Aspirish's video on FNAF. Now, he does the more analysis review type videos, great for reaction content. My stuff, you can react to it if you want to, but I don't think it's going to be that interesting. So yeah, let's jump into it. Typically today we would have had Minecraft instead of this React video, but when I was scheduling all my future content out, I accidentally forgot the 15th, like today. I forgot today. So in order to get today back on the schedule, I had to throw something on there. So we're going to do React Andy content. I am not going to be a full-time React YouTuber or anything like that, but we are going to mix it in every now and then. And another thing is, all the React videos I'm doing, I have permission from the channel to do the React content, and I know them personally. I'm personally friends with Aspirish, the guy who made this video. Great dude. Check out his channel. It's always going to be in the description regardless of my video. The links will be there, so check out his channel. Everybody else's content that's in description. A lot of cool stuff. So let's get it started without any further ado. This is the timeless horror of Five Nights at Freddy's. All right, let's get it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we proudly present an exciting new musical review with your merrymaking master of ceremonies, Chuck E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese. Your host with a most.
If you were a kid in the early 2000s, or even before then, you can most likely recall a moment in Chuck E. Cheese. Whether it was climbing through the tunnels, playing one of the many games, or indulging
Chuck E. Cheese. I have been once to Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know why I was there. I think it was for a birthday party, somebody else's, obviously. And I know that the reward I got for playing the games was like a little squirt gun that was red. So I do remember a little bit about that. And recently, because I did my FNAF video, I was doing a lot of lore videos and stuff on FNAF, just because it's fun to do those, FNAF lore is like a really big deal. So in gaming and stuff. So I was watching a bunch of these videos, and it brought up the how FNAF is related, could potentially be related to a murder that happened in Colorado at a Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know if that's going to come up in today's video, but there's that weird connection there to Chuck E. Cheese and FNAF. We'll see if he brings it up. Probably not, but we'll see.
in their very underwhelming pizza. Whatever your memory
Whoa, shots fired at the pizza.
Or maybe many of us were exposed to that place. There was an energy to it you simply couldn't
I don't remember any of this kind of stuff
find elsewhere.
happening
we all
there.
had different reasons for being there. However,
That
we
kind of
all
stuff is
knew
very
the most
FNAF
important
looking.
Part about it was the performance was the highlight of the entire.
Look at that. Does this not look like FNAF 1? Almost identically? That's insane. I had no idea that Chuck E. Cheese was that similar.
Restaurant. It was made especially more important if you went there during your birthday. It felt tailored to you. It was a celebration of you. At least, that's how it felt to me when I was a child. Seeing this mascot you knew from the...
See, that's what I remember, this kind of stuff, where you might have had just Mickey Mouse, or not Mickey Mouse, Chucky. You might have just had Chucky, and those climbing areas up there. That's the stuff that I remember.
Ads and the logo performed live for you was so magical.
We also have Raid Shadow Legends in the background.
It was the essence of you brought life to these animatronics, but
I just felt like having Raid Shadow Legends was a great way to add Raid content, because I do play Raid more or less, not every day, but sometimes.
And
great way to throw it on the channel.
Metal doesn't just move like a human. This thing isn't real, though.
It's true.
You can't just get off the stage and walk around. That's ridiculous. But if it could, what would it do? It wouldn't hurt me, right?
Hell yeah. What is this? What is this clip here? Is that Walden Files content? This is
No,
a
it
game,
wouldn't
I
do
think.
that, unless an evil scientist programmed it to do that. Animatronics have always had an uncanniness to them, though. Obviously, no rat looks like this, and Italians don't exist, but there's a deeply
What?
unsettling feeling when you sit down and look at
Whoa!
them. The faces were mostly fine. You could never truly go wrong with them, since they're mostly translated from drawings or cartoons, but a lot of the
Yeah.
eeriness stems from the eyes. Many of the animatronics,
Okay.
or more
I
specifically
buy it.
the vintage Chuck E. Cheese ones, were equipped with realistic-looking eyes, and because of this, it
is
siphoned a
true.
lot of the cartoonism out of the characters. When you're getting stared down by one of them, it doesn't just feel like
Yikes!
you're being
Like, can you imagine being like 10, you know, and your imagination goes crazy when you're young, you know, at anything that looks like remotely uncanny, like he said, and yeah. I don't know. I'm glad I didn't experience this type of Chuck E. Cheese.
looked at by a hunk
You know,
of metal,
the Chuck E.
but
Cheese
by
that I
something
remember
with
was
sentience. It instills
was
too
literally
much
a
life
cartoon.
into something inanimate, but you want to know something? That's why it's so good. There has been a lot of horror media based on the idea of seemingly inanimate objects coming to life. However, the idea of animatronic mascots moving
This movie, by the way, it's not FNAF. It's like a mimic movie or like a mockery of FNAF as a movie is way better than the actual FNAF movies. I'm just gonna say that.
coming to life hadn't been realized until a certain game. Yeah, you know what it is. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. To say
That
this
is.
series had an impact on the
Make it a
horror
little bigger
sphere
there
would
for
be
you.
putting it lightly. I mean, seriously, lightly. Like, even beyond the idea of animatronics coming to life, the ripple effects caused by this series are still being felt today. It is
Evil.
so popular, it became popular in of itself. Like a Fazbear or a Boris. Like a Fazbear or a Boris. It inspired countless fan games, books, cartoons, and even analog horror. The fan games especially, because even if you already know, there are
That makes sense. I feel like analog horror can be captured by like any sort of like you take anything and you can kind of twist it and turn it into like an analog horror story if you really want to, or incorporate it into one that's already going.
so many. A lot of them are legitimately amazing, don't get me wrong. Ironically, however, a point I hear repeated quite often is the lack of horror present in the current iterations of the series.
I can't speak to the current stuff. I only played the first 4, and I really only played the first one, and then like I tried out the other ones, and I don't know.
And this point alone
So I
has
can't
brought
speak
a
to the
lot
new
of
stuff.
that
I don't know if
sentiment
it's
to
good or
the
not.
series as a whole. Considering what has been recently produced, you could say Five Nights at Freddy's isn't
Is it the new
scary,
one?
but it was.
That's not out yet.
Most tend to forget how brilliant the older titles are. Their art styles, their design,
Dude,
both visually
again,
and
like,
audibly,
going back
as
and playing
well
the
as
old one
their
recently,
stories.
it's a trip.
simplified
It's so
much of
good.
the gameplay so it could hone in more on what drives that sensation of horror. It's likely why so many
It's the
revisits
atmosphere,
today.
it's the
While jump
environment
scares might be
that
cheap, you are surrounded
was so
by
good.
layers of creative depth. But with
Yeah,
that in mind,
totally agree.
join me as I talk about the artistic beauty of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Let's go. Fredbear.
Five Nights at Freddy's 1 always struck me as the outlier. Granted, it was the first in the series, and future iterations would only evolve the series, but in terms of raw atmosphere and visuals, it always struck me as the most fleshed out one. From the office
Absolutely.
to the cameras,
Absolutely.
it was all just
100%.
quiet. For a game that came out in 2014, it wasn't exactly pushing the envelope for graphic fidelity, but even still, the style was something that hadn't been seen before. It had
Yeah.
such
I think like when we talk about analog horror a little bit, I know that Aspirish is really big into that. I feel like with the camera specifically, how they did the security cameras and stuff, it really was kind of leaning in to that, but it wasn't all the way. Obviously, it's pretty hard to make a game strictly based around that. Well, I know they exist, but regardless, it was definitely leaning into a lot of those kind of like eerie, analog, uncanny valley stuff, and I think that was what really made the first one such a popular game.
a unique visual presence. It was reminiscent of a 90s computer game that had just been recently uncovered. The game
Yeah,
thrived off
exactly.
the essence of limitations. From a gameplay sense, you as the player are limited in what you can do in the game. The real lack of clarity through the cameras as well as the environment around you makes the entire world feel ghostly. The lighting elevates the horror
Absolutely.
tremendously.
I love the map of the first game for a lot of reasons. I remember when I first heard about FNAF and stuff, what I wanted it to be is a game where you like a first person survival game where you like ran around and had to hide in the pizzeria from the bad guys, and of course from the animatronics, and of course they would get more active as the nights went on, and you would like discover stuff. That's what I thought Five Nights at Freddy's was when it was first explained to me. Of course, I was wrong about a lot of those things, but the reason I felt that way is because of like the layout and the depth in the screenshots and stuff. I thought for sure that it's so detailed, it's so like specific and creepy that of course you would want to be able to explore the entire map, but being like constrained, just like the chair, basically, it was kind of cool. Actually, a little bit. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Black Ops 1 menu. But that's kind of getting off topic.
Tremendously as well. It is visible the moment you start the game. You're given just enough light to ease you into your office, but only so many details are truly visible. The lighting doesn't stretch far enough to cover the hallways, so you're made to look into this pitch black opening on both sides of your office. It leaves so much up to the imagination. Arguably the best use of
Yeah, I think he's gonna talk about it here, but like when the creatures, like you can kind of see them in the dark, but you can't really, and then you can see them better sometimes because how the lighting like is only on specific areas. It's so good.
The lighting occurs in the dining room. It makes such a large space look small. Its softness makes the whole room feel so much more expansive than it truly is, almost endless. Another spot worth mentioning is backstage. The only illumination in the room is the light from outside. It may not be enough to fill the whole room, but it's enough to see what's being hoarded. There's this deep sense of dread upon looking at the space. Nothing
And the moving, like this
However,
this
the
one here
presence of the
like moves.
endoskeleton and the spare heads leads to this visceral
And, you know,
unease.
potentially the
You can't
endoskeleton
tell
of
if
Golden
they'll
Freddy. I
move
think
like
that's
other
the going
animatronics. It makes you
assumption.
feel as if there's another thing to worry about. The lighting also works in tandem with the animatronics as well. There are many instances in which the characters become
They just stare
distorted by
right
the
at you.
light.
They just, and then like the little bit of light like on their face, and then the piercing eyes. Dude, it's so good. And like in the context of just that early version, like we didn't have all the other FNAF games that did everything a lot differently. Like it's perfect.
They look entirely different in some areas. They're so much more deformed. However, more often than not, a lot of the scariest moments come from Chica. Chica serves as the centerpiece of this game, in my opinion, because without her, there'd really be no perfect example for why the horror works so well. Whenever she's on screen, she's almost always contorted.
The what's it called? The kind of messed up Chica from the second game is, my opinion, the scariest of the animatronics in all of the games. I forget what that one's called. I didn't play a lot of 2, and I'm not too big into the lore stuff, so I'm not sure the name for it. But I think how peak on Chica, how it flaps open, it kind of changes a little bit. Just sells it so well.
In a more grotesque depiction.
Like look at that.
This works the best is when she's in the corner. What sells me the most on this frame is just how animalistic she appears. It's detached from how we'd seen her leading up to this position. It's such a contortion of her appearance that she feels like an entirely new character. On top of that, the exposure of her endoskeleton adds this extra layer of horror because it doesn't look anything like a piece of metal. Instead, it resembles a human jaw. One of the other visual aspects that I enjoy is...
I'm going to disagree with that one a little bit. I think for me, so at least for me, it's kind of what Aspirish mentioned earlier. It's the eyes are human, so you connect to them, but the rest of it, like the jaw, not on Fred but on Chica, isn't correct. So it's just like, oh, we have like a little bit of person. Like, no, it's not. Yeah, at least that is at least my perceptions there.
The game over screen. It is undoubtedly one of the most horrifying stills in the game. as it shows you the consequences of getting caught. Another aspect this game utilizes to perfection is sound, as well as the lack of it. This game uses sound
Totally
very
true.
sparingly,
Totally true.
and this works to great effect because it's not necessarily meant to startle you. There's a sense of depth in the
He might be talking about the eeriness, like in the back here. I think that's yeah. I
ambiance
think
of
that's
the
what's
game.
going on.
As I
I'm
mentioned
gonna say like some of the
previously,
sounds are
it feels
directly
ghostly.
supposed to like
Given the context of the game,
get
it
you, but
works
it's
very
typically in the
well.
jump
But I
scares.
believe what manages to make the sound so horrific is how diegetic it is. There are no easily identifiable instruments, so your brain doesn't categorize it
It's
as
true.
a part of the soundtrack. The later games did expand on this, but it's why the ambiance in this game in particular is so anxiety.
I think a lot of the sounds, especially like the one he just played there, they kind of sound like, oh, that could be like, an air vent or something, like making noise, or a generator somewhere like starting up, and kind of like the creaks of the restaurant and that kind of stuff. They all play into the atmosphere of the game. There isn't stuff that's like totally out of left field. It's very grounded in its elements, and I think that makes it more scary, actually.
Inducing. Rather than merely sounding like it's trying to draw something out, it feels as though it's being generated by your surroundings. Aside from just the ambiance,
Yeah,
however, the sound
kind of,
effects
yeah.
are truly where the audio design shines. The most horrific sound has to be when the animatronics are actually in your office. You'll hear this groan, almost like this last bit of air escaping out of a corpse. It is a phenomenal sound effect, and one that only happens when you've already lost.
True.
Don't forget the music box. I'll be honest, I never liked that puppet thing. It's always thinking, and it can go anywhere. I don't think the Freddy mask will fool it, so just don't forget the music box. Anyway, I'm sure it won't be a problem. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Now, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 has always been kind of gray for me. Generally speaking, the game
Me
lacks a
too.
lot of the horror elements that were present in the first game. The initial
I agree. It relies a lot more on like brutal mechanics that just kill you. You have to manage. It's not so much about managing like, your power resource and stuff. It's more about like, did I click this fast enough? So did I, switch from camera to mask to like check the vents, and did I wait long enough for all the things to end so that, it's a lot more like technical, which I think the fandom at the time, it was a really good decision to make it more technical, because I think the fandom at the time was desiring a more difficult game that they could tear apart, just like they tore apart the first game, in terms of like, now we know exactly down to the second, this stuff. So I think FNAF 2 was a good idea, but in terms for a casual gamer, it's like not fun at all. So like the first two nights are because you're still unlocking bad guys, and you're kind of learning about the game. You're like, oh, maybe I have a chance. But like by night 4 and 5, like you can't play casually. You're like super sweaty trying to get through there.
cutscene before playing the game instills this idea that the game is going to keep leaning more into that eerie atmosphere. However, you come to find out that a lot of the design choices that made the first game so effective have more or less been left in ruin. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 deviates
True.
a lot from the principles the first game set up, but that isn't to say there aren't aspects of genuine horror. The real highlight of this game originates from the designs of the withered animatronics. Comparing the withered animatronics to the
Again,
first
yeah,
game,
the designs
far
are
more
the
gritty.
withered. Yeah, that's it. Withered Chica, scariest one, and then the next scariest one I think would be Freddy from the fourth game.
In appearance. The lankiness of the animatronics makes them so much more imposing than any of the others we've seen before. It's made scarier when you factor in their appearances. These animatronics tapped into an entirely new fear, the nature of degradation. Seeing the characters we established ourselves with from the previous game in such a state of decomposition is horrifying. Parts of their bodies are missing, and there's this collection of grime
that could be why like this one, dude, nah easily the scariest in my opinion. And I think he's really hitting on why. It's because like we had Chica established, and then we go into this game and it's like, not even remotely, like it is remotely similar, but like barely. So we're taking the like uncanniness level of the first one and we're distorting it even more because you're already familiar with that. So now it's like uncanny twice, which is kind of cool.
Covers them. It's like seeing a rotting animatronic in real life.
Oh,
if you know what it
gosh.
looked like before, it makes it all the more dreadful as you remember its original form. However, now you're witnessing
fan
it as
footage
the
or something?
deteriorated statue fitted with rotting fur and torn cloth. I think it's why out of all the characters in this entire series,
I hate the music box. Like there's too much stuff to like control for in this one, which is why I don't like it
these
as
have
much.
always been the most disturbing to look at.
Yeah, like
Lack
you
of
have to do that cycle
exaggeration
over and
makes
over
them
again
scarier,
constantly. You
as they
really
look
can't
far
break from
more
it.
detailed and therefore more real in comparison to how we viewed them in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Also carrying over from the first game, Chica's
God.
weather design is by far the scariest out of.
Yeah, exactly. So he agrees with me. Yeah, like look at the double jaw. Like, ah, dude, it's so
the entire
so
cast. Chica
fucked.
is so detached from anything that could even be considered
Like,
friendly looking, even though her face
I know.
is still
Yeah.
intact.
Yeah,
She is so
100%.
defined that the cartoony look is completely absent, and instead it was replaced with this hollowness. Combined with
100%.
the lighting, it evokes this unnerving feeling. A lot of what I feel elicits this reaction is the fact that Chica never really seems to move. Even for all of the unpleasantries of the other characters' designs, you could at least gain some comfort from the fact they were constantly in different positions. It didn't help to make the situation any less concerning, but they weren't just
Yep, you
statues creeping
gotta flash
closer.
Foxy.
Chica, on the other hand, is constantly in this position, no matter the location. Now, while all of that is well and good, nothing holds a candle to the minigames. This is where most of the exceptional audio design as well as the visual design was put to work. There is
This is a part that I can't really speak on. I don't really know much about the mini games at all, and that's because I never really got into the other games beyond the first one. So I can't speak to the mini games, to their connection to the lore. I don't know that stuff as much. I usually refer to videos and other stuff when it comes to that.
no question as to why these minigames are the highlight of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. From a visual standing, the style of these minigames is exceptionally accurate to the period the game is set in. The amateurish look and simple gameplay adds so much.
That's
to
true,
making
yeah,
it
when you
feel
think about
authentic,
the
but it also
80s,
starves you of your
early
comfort.
80s.
You're only given a single prompt to guide you. However, how you ended up playing the minigames in the first place was so abrupt that you have no other choice but to be put on edge. These minigames are brilliant. The real fear comes from how arbitrary they appear, but beneath the surface, they are depicting events relevant to the world. In addition to that, the sound accompanying these minigames offers nothing to comfort you. It's persistent in keeping you anxious. You have to finish the minigame for it to stop, but you can't help but feel like it's trying to tell you something.
Yeah. I think I might have played a little maybe one of the mini games. Now that I'm thinking about it, but that was also back iPad, so that would have been 11 years ago. Or the Kindle Fire HD. Yeah. I first played FNAF on the Kindle Fire HD. Crazy. Is this 3? Or I don't know which one we're talking about now. I don't think so.
Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is where the series
Yeah, okay.
truly began to expand upon the foundation it had established.
So, I played FNAF 3 like a little bit, and I was told it's a lot easier than like FNAF 2, and I don't actually know if that's true, because I never played the whole thing. I did think it was weird that there was only one bad guy though.
Arguably the best part about this game is the composition.
At the
This
time, like, it
game
makes
felt like
sense
paid a
in
lot more
context
mind to
of the
how
lore and
world
stuff,
was
but-
supposed to be conveyed. There's this sickly green tint plastered on top of everything. The filth and the grime in the location makes this entire place feel abandoned. Even though this
True.
is a horror attraction, there's nothing to insinuate that anything has happened here in years. While the first games were empty, there was, at the very least, a feeling of activity. With how clean and kept the rooms were, it was fair to assume that they were used during the day. However, with this, there's no room for imagination. It's hard to believe anyone has stepped here in a long time. Springtrap, in my eyes, is
Springtrap,
one of the
William
most
Afton.
terrific entities in this entire series. His appearance alone is one of the most visually striking designs ever. It's such a visceral, gory amalgamation. This visual context plays an important role in the actual gameplay, as he doesn't just act like a standard animatronic. His movements and his positions are more lifelike.
They're more human-like, and that's there's a lore reason for that. It's supposed to be the creator William Afton. It's like he's in the Springtrap suit, got killed by it. I did like how they did it in the movie. That's like the only positive thing about the movie is how they finished it off with Springtrap. That I thought that was fantastic and totally like what I wanted and expected from that film.
Greater sense of awareness in Springtrap compared to the other animatronics. His eyes are also his most haunting feature. They've got this dead white color to them, but
as opposed to the first ones, the first like characters, they did this kind of thing where it was like just the eyeball, but it was only did that in certain camera angles, where Springtrap has that pretty much constantly. So like the big, I guess the softer eyes never really existed. It's always these like, they're not darker because they're literally brighter, but like the smaller eyes that are a little like, they're even less uncanny than the previous ones. It's kind of like we keep going, it's more and more twisted version of the next. Each iteration is more twisted than the previous.
They aren't the type of white you'd see on someone deceased. There's still life in them. When he looks at you, it doesn't remind you of an animatronic. His eyes aren't plastic, they're organic. It's a feature that shows up a lot, but it's ultimately very important to his design. It's both a figurative lens into the soul of Springtrap, as well as a visual representation that what you're looking at is still alive. There's something to be said about the lighting as well. Going back to what I had mentioned in the beginning about the composition, the lighting in Five Nights at Freddy's 3 felt more meticulous than all of the previous games. It felt more intentional and ominous. The way lighting is used in conjunction with Springtrap makes it feel more malicious. It's never used to highlight Springtrap, but rather conceal him and create more of a silhouette out of him. It made the game's atmosphere.
Yeah, I think like lore-wise, you could say like the reason for that, I totally agree here. I think the reason for like the lighting doing that way is instead of in the previous games where they're robots that have some consciousness, this like Springtrap definitely does and is intentionally hiding in the light, as opposed to just having the light accidentally highlight them. It's like intentional. It's intentionally sticking to the shadows and stuff.
Feel less like it was diegetically produced and more like it was bending around Springtrap himself. It's a brilliant way to keep you in suspense because you have to be diligent to find out where he is. It also adds a lot to the tone of the game. Much like the tint of the game, the lighting only embellishes this feeling of festering decay. The lights do not offer any sense of activity. The illumination is more reminiscent of a fleeting power source than anything. It makes the place feel like a purgatory. However, as I mentioned toward the start of this segment, the aspects of the other games make their way into this one as well. More importantly, the sound design. The sound design in this game always struck me as the most intense in the series. All of the sound effects felt broken and distorted. Everything feels fragmented. Though, the best sounds in the game mainly come from the minigames. The music tracks that play alongside the minigames feel distant. The way I see it, the music makes me imagine as if I were alone in the dark, hearing a track faintly playing from a location I cannot reach. It's disturbingly ethereal. It's reminiscent of an old memory.
Okay. Again, I can't speak to it too much. I didn't play that. I didn't play that much of FNAF 3. And FNAF 4, this game was huge when it came out. I still think it's a lot of people's favorite for a reason. The first one, second one, fourth one, a lot of people love those three. And people appreciate the third one, but I don't think people love it in the same way they like the other ones.
Is my favorite in the entire series.
Okay, yeah.
For many others as well. This is really where the story began to unravel, and where I feel Scott's attention to details shined the hardest. There was more context being filled. We finally got answers to questions that had been plaguing our minds for so long. It began to build upon the story, but it also built a completely new foundation in terms of atmosphere. From the menu alone, it was clear the tone of this game in particular would not be the same as the others. All of the games had very poignant color palettes, but this one has always stood out to me as it solely implemented this blood red hue. It was hellish. It is a literal representation of the game itself, given just how much context would be provided, but it also provides this deeper, more foreboding presence. It was the first time we were presented with a screen that didn't present the animatronics. They were silhouettes. It made it scary.
That's a good point. I never thought about that.
Of information to go off of. The design of this game has always been my favorite. The bedroom always felt intangible. It was one of the few instances where the setting you're in doesn't feel real. It was like stepping around in someone's imagination. You had your...
I had that exact same thought. It feels like a dream. And it might literally be, like, lore-wise, a dream. Because you definitely get that feeling like you're a young kid, everything's kind of larger than life, but then the animatronics are so aggressively huge and so powerful and so overbearing. But it definitely, like, you definitely get that perspective as a kid whose, like, imagination is just going insane, you know?
Bed, your toys, and your pictures. But even with those familiar objects, there was an absence of...
And even though, like, even the
hallways...
toys and stuff and the plushie and things like that, their uncanniness, their, like, their designs and stuff, they bring you back to some of the first game, a more cartoonish version of, like, the animatronics in the first game with their eyes and, like, how they're presented. And then on the flip side, the animatronics in the fourth game are more messed up and more scary than the second one. So good. And they have the kind of the presence like they do in the third one.
Information was your flashlight.
Flashlight, yeah.
And it could not span on far enough to encapsulate the entire corridor.
Nothing. It gets
Only
nothing.
certain objects felt like they were kept in mind. For a house, it seems so barren. The minimalistic design gave off this non-physical notion, as if the rest of the house was just being fabricated by someone's memory.
Additionally, it also, like, older, of course, now Scott the creator could have added more stuff to the house, but I think there's definitely a vibe with, like, early 2000s, you know, computer games, especially like the old Halloween game, which is what I remember a lot when I think of, like, these older horror games. The old Halloween game is like you're in a house and Michael Myers is coming to kill you, the babysitter. You have to, like, protect the house, but there's just not enough stuff in the house. It's kind of like, it's weird, you know. There's like the layout and design back then, it could have been just because it was minimal. You just didn't have the resources to put a lot of stuff in the house. It would just have taken too long, too much detail for, like, an indie team. But there's kind of a vibe to that, you know? And the fourth FNAF game, like, kind of leans into that. I think it's intentional that there's not a lot of stuff. It's intentional the lights don't do a great job. These aren't mistakes, you know, or they're not from a lack of resources, because he very easily could have, like, made the house more lifelike, but he didn't want to. And I think it's better that it's not that way.
Just would appear in places they hadn't resided in before, only to vanish. The layout of it was completely nonsensical as well. It sold the idea of the game taking place inside of a child's nightmares. And the animatronics connected to that idea
100%.
as well. The animatronics are gruesome looking.
Like, look at that, dude. That's crazy. I don't know if that's the exact one that I was talking about, but, like, the big Freddy's just, oh, and they do that thing, you know, the thing that made, you know, Chica so scary in 2 is that double jaw, and they all have, like, aggressively that double jaw.
There's so much more
2 layers of
gnarled and
teeth.
vicious compared to the real world counterparts. This
Yeah.
nullification of friendliness makes them so much more horrifying. Arguably, the best element of this game by far, though, is the sound. It's the baseline for the gameplay. However, the
Absolutely,
sound design
yeah.
in Five Nights at Freddy's 4 has always been superior to me. This game's ambiance is desolate. It's nothing but a low drone throughout the entire game. It's so much more insidious than the ambiance of the previous games. The chimes are warped, giving off this feeling of broken nostalgia. It embodies that late-night disquiet you'd hear after staying up past your bedtime. You also faintly hear the sound of a dog barking in the distance. Such a little detail, but it's the only solace you're provided, and even then, it's more of a presage. Not to mention, it paints this very sprawling picture of where you're located. It reinforces the idea that you aren't in a densely populated area.
You're alone, man. And the dog, the dog is, even if it's real, is the only life outside of the child.
Far out from any form of civilization.
Or the
It
maybe
makes
the
horror
animatronics if you
surrounding
want
the
to
game
talk
so
about
much
that,
more
but
frightening because it
yeah.
isolates you even further. You're no longer in a pizzeria or a horror attraction. That assurance that someone can
Right.
find you is no longer present.
Yeah, you're home
brilliant
and you're home
aspect
alone.
about Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is its premise. The visuals gave some leeway to the idea of the game, or at the very least gave some context to the setting you were in. But the thing this game utilizes the most to perfection was the story it told. Now, for the record, what the game truly represents is debatable, but with the context we're given, I believe the design of this game specifically paints a tone that is far more tragic and scarier than anything in the previous titles. The reason
agree.
the world around you feels so intangible is because it is. The character you play is fighting for a mental survival. These horrors are the last moments of conscious thought occurring throughout the child's head. It's an internal hell. These characters have been transformed into monsters, and the world has been stripped of all other colors besides this infernal red. When pairing this game's context with the visuals and the sounds, it makes this game so much more horrifying. Beyond just the jump scares, you're living through a child's nightmares, and some of their last ones at that. Instead of the peace that the child deserved, their last memories are that of anguish and fear, with the only comfort coming from the same character that doomed them to this fate. Sister Location is a curious game
Sister Location.
because it was
Never
a
played this
total
game.
subversion from the design principles that had been established, both in terms of visuals and gameplay. This game felt revolutionary in the sense that it managed to break the mold in terms of how the story was presented and how you went about experiencing it. This game took on a more technologically advanced aesthetic, and I think that worked to great effect. The elevator has always been my favorite room in the entire game. It's the starting point and the only visual you see upon entering, but it makes for one of the most impactful sequences in the entire game. Every Five Nights at Freddy's game before Sister Location had you immediately start in the office. But since there's no real office in Sister Location, you're left confused. There's no context as to where you're headed or how far down you're traveling. You're left in the suspense for what's awaiting you. It's not dark enough to frighten you, but it's too dimly lit to make you feel at ease. And the moment you reach your destination, another location where the visuals shine is when you step foot into the main control room. While nothing can technically hurt you in this room, the low light and claustrophobic feeling of it is discomforting, if not overwhelming. Another point I already touched on is the lighting. I've mentioned the lighting in every game, but I cannot stress how masterful it is. The breaker room, in my opinion, is one of the best examples of how impactful the lighting is in this game. The alien
super
design,
limited if
as
this is
previously
it.
mentioned, makes the space so much more terrifying, as there's no means of familiarizing yourself with it. Every time a spark pops above you, you're greeted with this moment of illumination. You catch small glimpses of what the area is supposed to be, but even still, you can't effectively visualize your surroundings.
Yeah, you can't take it
Structure
all in.
looks like it's in
Interesting.
constant flux. However, the light also emphasizes something more important. You're not alone. Watching Funtime Freddy constantly bounce around the room with every flicker is dread-inducing. The thought of him getting closer is constantly in the back of your head. You don't have this stream of information. You only get flashes of movement. The only way of figuring out how close he is to you is to wait for a spark to light him.
Dang. I wonder how that works in gameplay. I've not played this one, so I'm not sure.
Pizzeria Simulator is the last installment in the mainline Five Nights at Freddy's series, and the one with the least amount of horror elements. This game is a tough one for me because it's never really been all that horrifying. All you're doing is setting up your own pizzeria and buying items. It's silly, if not disappointing. So that's all I'll say about this game. Never
played this one either.
Really anything else to... I wanted to do something different for Pizzeria Simulator because I feel as
Did I just get bait and
there's
switched?
only one aspect that truly stands out as horrific to me. Now, I don't say this to put down the game. In fact, it's more of a praise than an insult. The salvage minigame
I didn't play this one. I don't know what's going on.
In my eyes, is one of the most fear-inducing segments in any Five Nights at Freddy's game. What it manages to pull together with its visuals and its sound is a perfect concoction of horror. The idea, while simple in premise, is exceptionally unique to me. There's so much buildup and anticipation to the jump scare, and you can certainly prevent it with your taser, but you can't help but feel inclined to watch the animatronics slowly and surely move every so often. Molten Freddy's salvage minigame stands as my favorite out of all the characters you inspect. His eyes become so beady and lifeless under the light, and his face becomes so much more imposing and deformed. It makes you think, there's no possible way this animatronic is alive or even active. The stature and the fragmented face add to that notion that what you're looking at is nothing more than a hunk of metal. But the moment you notice his movement, you're put on edge. The subtlety of it is terrifying.
Like maybe there is.
The posture he shifts to is that of alertness. And it transitions into malice after that, with his face getting even closer. This minigame is phenomenal at closing the space between you and the threat. There is, to my knowledge, still nothing quite like these minigames. Compounded with the lighting and the general designs of the animatronics, these minigames compile all of those developed elements into one, and I believe that's what makes this game's horror worth mentioning.
I wonder how that is in gameplay. I've not seen any clips. I don't know.
Five Nights at Freddy's as a series and now a franchise has always meant a lot to me. The excitement it brought to my life is something I will never forget. It came at the absolute best time. However, it was clear from the start that it was a series made up of passion, and I believe that's why so many people were willing to lend it their attention, even when the sequels came out mere months after each other. It is not where it used to be in terms of
I guess the first ones were,
I suppose, but for what it's worth, the older
really
games
close.
still hold significance as far as how they managed to convey their horror. There have been videos made on the audio, but Scott's design principles, both visually and audibly, are some of the best I have ever seen. And I find that ironic considering Five Nights at Freddy's was the first horror media he had ever created. As much as I like to compare the other games in the series to the first one, they all equally had a great deal of horror to their respective environments. Going back to the beginning of the video, to think such a series as this managed to build an entire franchise solely on an underrepresented idea should inspire future creators to do the same. It's difficult to say if we'll ever have anything like Five Nights at Freddy's hit the market, but what's certain
is true. The way FNAF like just showed up and was instantly everybody wanted a piece of it. The Let's Play community and the lore like community and the the theory crafting, like all these different groups of gamers or aspects of the internet, people who are really into horror, people really into analog horror specifically, but horror games in general, like all came together. It was so good because it captured so many like subgenres of or subcultures, I guess, on the internet. And like I know people who are not gamers at all, they play FNAF, or they played FNAF back in the day, or even if they don't play, they're really like interested in the lore and the story behind it. It was kind of a perfect storm. Perfect storm game, perfect storm time. The timing was really important. We hadn't had anything like in terms of gaming go as quickly from not really known to absolutely huge, in a while. So it was definitely something that became like a part of internet culture right away. It was really cool. Will that happen again? I mean, probably. There's lots of creators out there like doing new things and doing cool things, and there's creators like me who are not. But there's all sorts of like cool like creative projects going on, and you never know what the next like huge thing is going to be. If it's going to be FNAF, if it's going to be similar to, or if it's going to be like totally the opposite of. So yeah, that's exciting. Like just to think about like what the next thing could be in media. But FNAF definitely has its place as some of the most influential or like and influential and like interesting media of the last decade and a half. Cool stuff going on here.
Certain is we will see a franchise built from an individual's passion again at some point. Perhaps
Yeah, that's true.
sooner than later. Other than that, I thank you for
Maybe.
tuning in. Until next time, Aspirish signing off.
Aspirish out. Fantastic video. Link to his channel in the description below, and a link to this video will also be there. This has been cool. This has been the very first IcedCrab Reacts. They will not be constant all the time. If I do music, it'll only be Drew's or Justin's right now. I'm not going to be doing people's music who I don't know already. Again, the rules are I have to know them, and I have to express permission to do the reaction on that, and then I'm going to send them the video before it's published so they can review it and make sure it's okay. So there's all that stuff. I'm not going to upload or react to just anybody's stuff. That's not what this is about. This is about like sharing an experience with another creator, one of my friends, and having that dialogue, and hopefully leeching off your viewers. So your viewers sub to my channel if they want more of this. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. This content is awesome, and it's totally worth it. All right. Thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on social media, ring the bell, share the video, get the word out. We're trying to get to 500 subs in 2026. I know it says 420 on there. I'm going to fix it eventually, but we're basically trying to get to 500 subs in 2026. Also check out Aspirish's channel in the description. Check out this video in the description below as well. Thank you all so much. I will see you in the next one.